Are you ready to get going?
I am, dude. By the way, I'd like to
Mm.
reiterate or iterate actually
Uh-huh.
how nice it is to see your handsome face, buddy.
It's good to see you
Yes,
too,
yes.
man. Happy birthday!
Thank you. 37 years young. Yours is coming up, isn't it?
It passed. It was
Oh
like
fuck.
we were gonna record on my birthday, but I postponed it because of the typhoon, or as you guys call it,
Wow.
a hurricane. And it was like,
Wait, so your birthday just passed, like
yeah,
just
my birthday was what day is it where you are? 26?
August. Yeah.
My birthday was yesterday.
Oh fuck. Happy birthday. Happy
Thank you, buddy.
birthday. 37?
That's it. Yes, yes.
Yeah, we're
Our
the same
parents,
age. We're
our
just
parents
apart
conceived us at the
weeks.
same time, possibly on the
Pretty much
same day. Who knows?
same day in the same time zone to
Yeah.
warm themselves up on that
The
cold,
winter
austere December night.
or New Year's. So it's around that time. Christmas, New Year's, 8, 9
Yeah,
months.
could be that. The stars were super bright. The air was clean and crisp. Bears were snoozing in their little
Yeah.
ensconcements. Little black capped chickadees were shivering under
Uh,
a root arch.
Doe beers were sniffing through the snow. Doe beers.
Doe
Doe
bears.
deers were sniffing through the grass for like remnants of the summer like grass. Anyways, shall we?
Shell. That's a nice copy. Look at that. It's got the original dust jacket.
Uh,
Mine has it, but it's encased in some modern frivolity, whatever this
shall
border
we
is.
pose?
Yes, we shall. Hold on.
Get into position
Oh no!
for those listening. Oh, ready? Pose.
Make a point. Make a point.
Starting off this week, boozing through lit. Fuck it up.
You goofball. Welcome to another episode of Boozing, a special episode. We're going to be reviewing The Great Gatsby as suggested by Sharthak Sharma. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. The person very kindly asked us to review the book on YouTube, and we are more than happy to oblige. So thank you very much for the request. And also, if you have requests yourself, feel free to email them to us at boozingthroughlit@gmail.com. Hit us up on Facebook, or leave us a comment on Instagram or YouTube, and we'll definitely add them to the list. I think we're going to try to do this more regularly. Instead of doing boozing through the New Yorker, we'll do boozing through a novel. So I have my spiel. Are you ready, bud?
Yes. I'm ready
Okay.
for you, babe.
When F. Scott Fitzgerald set out to write The Great Gatsby in the early 1920s, he wrote to his editor, Maxwell Perkins, that he wanted to write something new, something, quote, extraordinary and beautiful and simple and intricately patterned. Now, most know that the book fared poorly, and if Woody Allen is to believe, F. Scott Fitzgerald complained that one should never write a book fewer than 50,000 words. The Great Gatsby is 94 words more than 47,000. And the book languished essentially unknown and unread, netting Fitzgerald some $13 at the time of his death. It may have gone unknown forever until a group of authors, librarians, and publishers formed the Council of Books in wartime in February of 1943 and shipped it out to American soldiers to keep their morale up to kill the Nazis who were blind with smoke from burning books. The Great Gatsby actually entered the war after Germany and Japan had surrendered. And so while the troops were being shipped home on boats beating on against the current, they read The Great Gatsby. Why those book lovers would think The Great Gatsby would solidify the fortitude of weather-worn and bullet-dumb soldiers to keep on fighting, I don't know. But we have them to thank for this episode of Boozin'. What has been left unsaid about this book, a book most have a formal education, most have been educated in, I don't know. What's left to find in the curring of the words that hasn't already been excavated. Having studied this book in high school, I never want to hear I have to say this quick. Having studied this book in high school, I never want to hear again how the clock Gatsby nudges off the mantle in Nick's rented residence represents how he is stuck in time. I'd rather like to talk about the pathos of that man and how dreams and love make one pathetic. I also forgot about how some passages in this book are truly beautiful. They're born of a man who knew with absolute certainty what he was writing about. I have no idea what a tuning fork struck against a star means, but man, I know he did, and I trust him for it.
Yeah.
I used to have this saying that any story can be literature. It's not the story, but how it's told that makes it what it is. And how The Great Gatsby is written is what turns this from melodrama to art. On this episode of Boozing, he knew that when he kissed this girl and forever wed his unutterable visions to her perishable breath, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. The Great Gatsby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Well done.
What do you think of the book?
Oh, man. I didn't realize it was only 47,000 words. That's not a lot.
47,098 to be precise.
Oh, well.
I counted them myself. That's why it took me so long to finish.
That's like Heart of Darkness length, isn't it? I mean, that's not... And Heart of Darkness is considered a novella. What did I think of it? I didn't understand it until Matthew J. Brucoli, actually it could have been him quoting Maxwell Perkins, whom you mentioned, Fitzgerald, and I believe Hemingway's editor at Scribner & Sons.
A lot of people's, actually.
Earlier. He sounds like a very perspicacious gentleman. He sounds really good at what he did as an editor. I didn't understand it until I heard the word romantic realism, or symbolic realism. I'm like, oh, okay. Starts to make sense now. Like these really unique and beautiful metaphors. Like it's just so, there's the green light, Eckelberg's eyes, the Wilson's garage, Gatsby's mansion, Gatsby's smile. Yeah. The land, a valley of ashes, and the Corona ash dumps. The yellow convertible, the Midwest. What does the Midwest mean? What does the East mean? What did it mean to Fitzgerald? What does it mean in the novel? The novel, what actually happens, you're oftentimes reading it wondering why it's there. For such a small novel, why are there 3 party scenes? Why do we have to see like three different parties of vapid, uninteresting, dull, hollow drunks, not saying really anything at all? Well, it's because the green light is the symbol of America, situated on Long Island, which the Dutch, as they sailed in the 1600s, actually the late 1500s or the 1600s, whatever, the tip of this vast continent that was unknown to European man at that time, and the vast potential, the great love, similar to Gatsby's love for Daisy, at what you don't know, what you barely perceive, but what you populate before you even set foot on it with your wildest dreams, with your deepest desires, and it all seems rosy and beautiful, and it forces you to catch your breath, and then you set foot on it, and suddenly you start peopling it with slave plantations and tanneries and factories and roads where people get run over, and everyone's just getting drunk, and they because they're rich, and they don't have souls anymore. There's nothing to dream for. There's nothing to hope for. It's all there, and it's all horrible. This great, great continent has been spoiled by Americans, and it's Americans like Gatsby, and again, we're just starting to talk of the novel now, and I'm kind of sweeping through. I'm hogging a lot of the key points, and I apologize.
And that's the book, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. That's it for us on Boozy?
Yeah. I'm sorry. But I wanted to just say up front that I thought it didn't make sense to me. A lot of the passages didn't make sense until I realized that, it's a symbolic realism. Like Fitzgerald is trying to show different moods in 1920s America that symbolically point toward the entire history of the country that he was so interested in. And I think he did a wonderful job. It's just so beautiful. It's such a beautiful and sad book, and hopeless.
Yeah, I know. It's really hopeless.
What'd you think of it?
It's such an easy read. I'm not as an astute reader as you, but it's such an easy read. And
Not very.
Other than the first 2 pages, because those first 2 pages, as we've already talked about,
they're awful.
I think, I have a rule for when it comes to when it comes to writing, if you have to put those dots in this, my version is 3 dots to like symbolize a jump in something, just cut out whatever you wrote before it, because it's just useless. Like, I don't know what benefit this whole passage it does set some of the themes in place, like the idea of hope in Gatsby. And
Sorry.
But I think that it was really to try to give us the idea that, the thing that his father tells him: whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all people in this world haven't had the adventures that you had, right? And that, and you wanted to know that he doesn't judge people. I think that's the whole purpose of those 2 things. And it doesn't give me anything more to the book, right?
Well, it's just, you kind of get the idea why the fuck he left the Midwest, Nick Carraway. I mean, if that's the summation of Midwest wisdom, the kind of how the father is the lawgiver in sort of atavistic terms. The father is the bearer of wisdom and the torch of knowledge. If that's all he has to offer, if that's what's most noteworthy, get the fuck away from this guy. He's a colossal bore. He's a bore.
I wonder if, it's also to set up like the trustworthy narrator, but I also wonder if he got a note at some point and said, why doesn't Nick say anything about the fact that his second cousin's being cheated on? And he lies a lot in the book, to cover up the relationships of people that he supposedly cares about. It's
right.
I found that maybe that's why he put that in, because otherwise he's why does he go with Tom? Why is he okay with that? Maybe this is a modern sensibility, right?
It's funny. Nick is a bore. Nick is a hypocrite. Nick is a coward.
Yeah.
Nick is unreliable. Nick, it's I don't know. We have. I mean, the only virtue he possesses is that he's aware of the vapidity of the people who are more boring than him. There's a certain virtue he has by not having a lot of money. But it's interesting that this is the character to tell the story, when he doesn't, he's almost like a character brought out of a T.S. Eliot poem. You puncture him and skip note comes out. I don't really know. Yeah, why I don't know why he's the narrator. I have to tell you, I don't know why.
I think it's because he's got both, a foot in both worlds, right? He's not aristocracy like Tom is, but his family goes back 2 generations with money, at least 2 generations. It's his grandfather's brother or whatever it was that made the whatever. And so they have some money, his family, and he comes from out west to over east. I think they put him in this, and Daisy is his cousin, who comes from world 2, right? So he's kind of got one foot in both worlds, right? He's in West Egg for a reason, but he can also he goes to East Egg and he just blends right in. No one says anything. He's not considered new money.
No, right,
so
right.
I think that's
what are you doing? What are you doing in West Egg? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And
It's just, I guess, too, you don't want to make your narrator more interesting than your protagonist. And, I fear that Gatsby is not interesting at
no,
all
no.
unless you see him symbolically. Like as a man, he's kind of retarded in a way, and I mean that with
He's
all
very
love.
much so.
He's kind of it's just I don't understand. That's the thing too. It's who is falling in love and what are you falling in love with? What is this
Mm,
person falling in love with? It's a wonderful question. And I love that Fitzgerald had, as it were, the bravery to tell this very unglamorous story about it. It's not, there's a lot's been made of the pageantry of the parties, and, Robert Redford and Leonardo DiCaprio have been very picturesque in their portrayals of Jay
mm,
Gatsby or James Gatz,
mm,
whatever. But really, it's a pathetic story about two wealthy idiots, one of
mm,
whom is a criminal, and the other one is the daughter and granddaughter of criminals
mm.
who marries a bully,
A
you
fascist,
know,
kind of like racist.
a fascist, racist bully
Yeah.
who is an accessory to murder,
Mm,
basically. Um, and his wife is a killer.
mm.
His wife is a Bruce Jenner transitioning to Caitlyn Jenner killer. Like just runs someone in,
Moves her
just
over.
drives into someone and totally gets away with it
Mm,
negligently. And and then it's all narrated by a spineless
mm.
Midwest nobody who can't even remember his own birthday.
You know,
It's just I don't. But the funny
today's my
thing is
birthday.
that it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful and poignant. But it's great that do you almost feel as a writer that Fitzgerald chose very difficult subject matter to transmute into something poignant? Do you feel he was doing that in a way?
Yeah. Yeah. I like otherwise, like
Maybe
Back Gatsby.
you think it's possible? You know.
Well, I think the whole book is really symbolic. He spent a long time writing this.
Yeah, he
Like
did.
he had a very specific goal in mind when he wrote this, right? Like it started off as a book of manners set in like the late 1800s. That was the first
Mm,
draft of it. And then he's like, no, and he didn't like that. He wasn't happy with it, and he rewrote it to be this, right? Everything in here is very symbolic, like the clock, like the. I
yeah.
don't like talking about the clock or like the fact that he has all these shirts or the fact that the guy is surprised that the books have words in them because they're very cheap symbols in a way, like why even bother talking about it? But the whole book is like this. The whole book, if you watch the movie by Baz Luhrmann, the recent one, it kind of gets this hyper realism going on that is not necessarily in the book, but it because I don't know if hyperrealism existed at that time, but it's sort of there in the fact that everything it kind of means something. The fact that like it's summer, and the fact that in
That's
the fall the first leaves start to fall, and that's when Gatsby is killed because it's that transition period. It's the dog days of summer where you feel like you're stuck in this world, and then you get hit with that transition, and you like the book talks about. We are constantly trying to go forward, but we're stuck in the past. That's kind of what the symbols represent, right? Like they want to. Gatsby still wants to stay kind of in that summer because of Daisy, but you can't because fall is here,
yeah.
right? Like
Well,
you.
our tragedy is that we can't imagine anything different.
Mm,
We can't imagine anything different. I mean,
mm,
all the discipline, business acumen,
mm.
the criminal genius of Jay Gatsby, all of it was toward what goal?
A
Really?
chick.
Like back when you were a soldier, you had a fling with some
Mm,
fop,
yeah.
with some brainless debutante. Like really, like Daisy doesn't really. And again, this is not an anti-woman thing.
Mm,
Daisy is obviously a very well fleshed out character, but she's not. She's just a boring rich girl. There's no. It's you know. It's like the same thing. Like, when Europeans landed on this continent, like what to do what? Well, to rape, murder, and steal. That's the outcome. That's the outcome. It's like you dream better. Like you said earlier, just a moment before, going forward, but being stuck in the past. There's no way forward because you're stuck in the past. Yes, and it means, what I think it means is that it's just people's dreams are not bold enough. America is as it appeared in the novel.
Hold that thought, Brett. I have to.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna take a short pause here for a second because the computer's running hot
Sure.
and we're not gonna be able to record. Hold on. Okay. Hopefully that fixes it. Can you hear my fan? Hopefully you don't hear my fan.
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Because I put a fan under. Hopefully that'll prevent it from happening again. Because it said it was too hot. But let's get back into continue with what you were saying.
It's hold on. It's the inability of Americans to dream bigger dreams, to not do the same old crap that they were doing wherever they came from originally, but to it's just you can't. The past is what it is, and you can't escape it. It's very fatalistic in a way, and yet we understand the present and the future through the mechanism of dreaming, of hoping poignantly that what we desire can be borne out in reality. And what's very interesting is that this novel was written at a time, or just before a time, when Jacques Lacan would come up with, would come up with the three different. Oh my God! One of them is melancholia. It's with regard to dreams and dreaming, and what happens to the conscious mind when certain conditions happen. Like in one case, when the dream can never be achieved. Right, there's one side effect, one effect that it has on consciousness, and then there's a middle one I can't remember, but the third one, melancholy, I do remember, and it's what happens when the dream is attained. You attain the dream; it's in your hands, but you have changed to the extent that you can no longer enjoy it.
That sounds like something Oscar Wilde would say. The worst thing you could do is achieve your dreams, something like that. Yeah.
In a way, but certainly to achieve your dreams when you yourself cannot even enjoy them anymore, when you've changed to such a degree that, like getting wealthy, but you get wealthy at the expense of your health. So you don't know when to stop, So it's like you have, let's say, $14 million in the bank, but your kids hate you and you have a weak heart, something like that. And with Gatsby, it's like he actually does achieve his dreams, but his criminality has made him so vicious and domineering in a way. His dream has made him mad. No, you never loved Tom. What does that matter? You've got her.
Yeah.
She's going to run away with you.
Yeah.
But she's not. She's enough of a good person. She has enough more. She's not going to lie. She already feels bad. She's running away from Tom. But she's going to, because Tom is, like you said, a fucking fascist bully. And he's a womanizer. He's an odious personage. But why does she have to admit that she never loved him? Well, because Gatsby's changed. He's not the officer he was.
There's a line that's really interesting.
He can't enjoy it. He had it, and he can't enjoy it. Sorry.
There's a line just in the book that says that when he first meets Daisy. He says that he liked the fact that she had been with other men, right? And now all of a sudden he can't stand the fact that she has a kid with Tom. Like he can't stand the fact that she may have loved Tom a little bit, or even for a moment, and then
briefly, and for real.
And then he has that negotiation with with Nick at the end, going, you know, maybe she did love him for a minute, but she loved me too at the same time.
What is he says such a great line? What is it? He says something really enigmatic, and this is what I mean. This is why this book is brilliant, because there's certain passages like this that no one else, you get a sense no one else would have written. You're right. At that moment when Nick is talking with Gatsby, and he goes, you know, maybe she did love, but she loved me too. And hold on. He says this. In any case, it was just personal.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does that... And even Nick calls it a curious remark. So here's what leads up to it really quickly. I don't think she ever loved him. Gatsby turned around from a window and looked at me challengingly, me being Nick, of course. You must remember, old sport, she was very excited this afternoon. He told her those things in a way that frightened her, that made it look as if I was some kind of cheap shopper. And the result was she hardly knew what she was saying. He sat down gloomily. Of course, she might have loved him, just for a minute, when they were first married, and loved me more than then, do you see? Loved me more even then, do you see? Suddenly he came out with a curious remark. In any case, he said, it was just personal. So is this like some kind of acknowledgement that what you want is impersonal, isn't real? Is he finally waking up? Did he finally wake up for a moment to the fact that it was all fugazi?
Well,
that it was all make believe.
If we're looking
it's
at
not
this,
even love. Can we come out with it?
Yeah.
It's not love. It's not. It's whatever it is. It's an obsession.
There's a couple lines that stayed to me that I thought, like, if we look at this as symbolic, right? There's a line that at the house earlier with Tom before they go in the cars to the city, and I thought maybe at that point, or maybe it was at the hotel. Anyways, Gatsby they say, like, what's in her voice? Daisy's voice. And Gatsby says it's money in her voice. Right?
That's right.
And I'm like, well, why are you still trying to pursue her then if you understand what this is? Right? And I think what you're talking about is it's not personal because women in some ways are commodities. Right? Like I've been trying to understand why they swapped cars. Right? Like, why exactly did they swap cars other than the plot device of it? Right? What's the symbolism of it? And I had to write it down because I thought I figured we would talk about it. So it's Tom who says, why not swap cars too? Right? He says that after he realizes that, you know, he's being stooped by Gatsby. Gatsby's stooping him with his wife. And he says, why not swap cars too? I will take your car while you take my wife.
Take my wife.
Right? And because Daisy's insisting to go with Gatsby. And it also, in the car, with Gatsby in the car and with Daisy in Tom's car, it still gives Tom some sort of control over the situation, symbolically. They're in his car. It's on his terms, you know?
Right.
And so that's the kind of way I was looking at that car scene. And when you look at women in that regard, then, kind of, like, there's a couple other scenes, like, closer to the beginning of the book when they're languishing, Jordan and Daisy are languishing amazingly well written on the couches, like they're like statues, or, you know, subdued by the heat, and they speak at the same time at one point, right? Like they say the same thing at the same time, and I think that's to show that they are like kind of interchangeable in a way, like they're very similar, and they're just there like statues, something that you own to ornament your house.
Right.
I don't know. I could be going a little bit off the rails with
that.
There's
certainly, you know, it's like, how casually does Tom break his mistress's nose? I mean, it's so brutal. It happens so fast. Just thwap. You know, and broken. And when she was run over and killed by, he believes, Gatsby, it was actually his wife that did it. But when he believes that Gatsby ran him over, he's not upset that he ran Myrtle over. She's upset that he ran Myrtle over. Like, if anyone's going to kill that bitch, it's going to be me. It's like one of these things, like, and when he started crying in the car with Nick and Jordan, and he's like, he doesn't say poor Myrtle. He talks about Gatsby, like, goddamn coward, like that kind of thing. Women are, they're just objects, of course, in this book. I mean, and when Daisy finally goes, "You're asking too much from me, Gatsby," you're kind of shocked. It's like, holy shit, some volition. Like, all right.
That's
so there's a soul in that body. There's a soul. Ultimately, Daisy is a real character, but for quite a while, like you said, there's this sense that she's almost a statue imbued with the modicum of life necessary to appear alive. But no, in fact, she is a human being that once loved Gatsby tenderly and a little foolishly.
I think
and she felt the weight of the world coming down on her, the pressure to marry, the pressure to settle down.
I think that's one of the conflicts of the book, is the fact that it is so symbolic. Like, there's a conflict between the symbolism of the book and trying to tell a genuine, real story. I think that comes to a head sometimes. And it can be either interesting, you can either enjoy it or not, right? Because Gatsby, I sometimes don't know how Gatsby made any money. Other than, like, because he seems so pathetic near the end of the book. Hiding behind bushes? Like, that's the image of Gatsby that stays with me as the real Jay.
A man who controls, like, a Vanderbilt level fortune, waiting outside the book. I mean, you hear strange stories about things rich people did. Like, really, like their grandchildren would write an expose of, I don't know, John Rockefeller wore lederhosen or something, and nothing else, or it's weird shit. So it's not out of their own possibility that somebody who is essentially a killer, like, not only did he kill on the battlefield, but he probably killed in his bootlegging business, that he would wait outside with his hands in his pockets, feverishly for a woman that he loved for a few weeks, was it? I mean, it wasn't terribly long.
I think it was a month. Yeah, before he got shipped out.
Yeah. And it's not out of their own possibility, but you're right. There's something fantastically unreal and pathetic about it, too.
And it's like, who was he before? I don't really... Like, that's part of the reason why he's killed. Symbolically, Gatsby doesn't exist anymore at the end of the book.
And you notice how he's just floating.
Yeah.
He's floating on the water. It's like he didn't even die standing up. He was ambushed and shot while he reclined on the water. It's like, yeah, he is water. There's just, you plunge your hands into it and there's nothing there.
When Nick tells me that they're 30, like, I remember reading this in high school and stuff, and, like, thinking about it and looking up at them. And now that I'm reading it, it's like, on my birthday, I'm like, you guys are fucking 30, and you're this is what you're doing for a girl. Like, dude, chill.
Yeah, Gatsby seems much older than 30, isn't he? Isn't he around the same age as Nick?
They're in their 30s. He's in his early 30s, I think it says in the book. They all are, and to me, they all seem like much older men. And
Tom seems 50.
Yeah.
He's a lumbering, swollen
eugenics.
Tom's the real character out of the whole, or at least maybe I understand Tom the most. Maybe I'm surrounded by Toms. Probably it. There's a lot of angry rich racists around right. It's just, spousal abuse was quite common on the street I grew up in. But, it's 30s. I don't understand that. Like, Gatsby's like 45 in my mind. Like, he's a very good looking 45-year-old. Like, he's svelte. He's got a good tan. He smiles beautifully. He's got attractive sun wrinkles around his eyes, He has
Like
more
a
stamina than a
George Clooney,
20-year-old.
not a Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, George Clooney, or maybe just, like a tanned Robert Redford, like
Yeah.
when Robert Redford played up in the 70s, I think it
Mm.
was. But it's funny, like one detail that I really enjoyed was when I guess it amounts to a denouement, like a climax in
Mhm.
the story, is when Daisy is being verbally fought over by Tom and Gatsby, and she sticks up for herself to a degree and says, I don't want this, I don't want
Mhm.
this. Tom says something. Tom reveals Gatsby's revenue stream, basically, that he's
Yeah.
into something so deep, he's into something so bad that even a spurred business partner who has every reason to spill the beans on Gatsby won't, because he's
Mhm.
scared. And Gatsby turns the look of a murderer onto him. Like Gatsby, the real, not the canvas pant wearing, loafer along Lake Superior,
Yeah.
not James Gatz, right?
Mhm.
Because that's also who he was. But Jay Gatsby, whatever is real about Jay Gatsby, this new person that James Gatz has become, there it is,
Mhm.
right? It's
That's the
like for a
face.
brief moment, he could have killed Tom right then and there, but no, he had to play the part. He had to, and this is the funny thing. It's like the idea that if you wear a mask for too long, it ruins your skin. Let's say, or there's some kind of I think there's some Greek fables to this extent that, if you wear a mask, like if somebody wore a mask, to hide a blemish, and it just
Mhm.
they didn't think their face was comely enough, and it was a perfectly fine face as faces go. You wear the mask for long enough, and you try to take it off, and it won't come off.
Mhm.
Like it's become your skin in a way, and you rip your fucking face off, as it were. Now you're hideous.
Mhm.
Like Gatsby, that's like the veil of Gatsby, the character, the persona is like, no, I'm not a bootlegger. I'm a gentleman of distinction, and I love you,
Mhm.
Daisy. And Tom's like, not only are you a criminal, you're so deep in shit that your criminal buddies are scared to rat you out.
Mhm.
In front of Daisy, says this. And Nick is like, no shit. I know everyone's been saying this at his parties for months. He had that face of, I've killed a man. He turned that on
Mhm.
Tom. That's so James Gatz, the bright-eyed, smiling dreamer, has become this,
Mhm.
and it's like, holy shit. He's doomed. Like just no, he doesn't know how to love. He doesn't know.
Mhm.
Like he's become, in order to achieve his dream, he's become a monster,
Mhm.
you know? And isn't that America in
Yeah.
a way? In order to quote
Corrupted by the
unquote tame the
dream.
continent, corrupted by the dream.
Mhm.
Go West America. So white people left their families behind, often infants, wives with no means of support, took their long rifles, left the woods of Kentucky and Tennessee, went into Arkansas, Texas, butchered Indians, were butchered by them.
Mhm.
Donner Party crosses the Sierra Nevada, eats each other. Indians are murdered, their lands taken. Slaves are dragged out west, for a time anyway.
Mhm.
Chinese are blown up in railroads. It's
And
like
yet
an
they're gentlemen.
underclass is, and there's a few of them that make it. A few of the Leland Stanfords and the John Rockefellers and the Andrew Carnegies, a few of them make it to the very, very top, where their names are spoken with hush reverence. They're murderers,
Mhm.
every single one of them. It's like Balzac said, behind every great fortune, a crime is made. Behind every great fortune, there is a crime. Sorry.
Can we talk a minute
And
about the
it's
anti-Semitism in this book?
Jesus, fucking everywhere. Meyer Wolfsheim, who's one of only a few characters who speaks phonetically
Yeah.
in the book.
Yeah.
Everyone in there is saying darling all the time, darling, darling, but he spells it,
Mm.
Darling, L-I-N-G. But when Meyer Wolfgang wants to say connection, it's
Connection.
connection. Connection. Hey, this is my friend, Jay Gatsby. Great people.
And if they were going to draw him, they'd just draw a nose with hair coming out of it. That's the only thing we get of it.
Yeah, there was a Nazi cartoonist in 1932 stroking his fucking beard saying, this is very good. Yeah, this is very good. Now, we're going to use this.
We only have a couple minutes left here.
It's awful.
I want to say probably the best ending of a book I have ever read.
I know. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. It's beautiful.
Holy.
Do you care to read it? Maybe a few paragraphs?
I'll read.
Leading to it, then.
You might be a better reader than me. I think you really only need. Oh, where is it? It's up to the back of the book, Darryl. That's where it is. Most of the big shore places were closed now, and there were hardly any lights except the shadowy, moving glow of a ferry boat across the sound. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the New World. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commensurate of his capacity for wonder. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning. And so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Holy shit, that's how you know he knew what he was writing about. That's an ending.
He knew his themes. Themes.
Now, we have a question.
His dream,
Oh, sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, that's it. No, just reiterating what you just said, yeah.
So we have a question about the book from Cerise, a longtime Jeju. I put out a call for people who want questions, and this was what came back. So thank you. Do you think this is a great work of literature or just a rattling good time, she asks. I think
it's a great work of literature.
Yeah, I think
I can already think that if you're an Iroquois or a Wampanoag and you read that passage, these Dutch sailors' eyes, obviously you would come from a very, very different perspective than the Eurocentric perspective that Fitzgerald brings to bear. And Fitzgerald is using that totalizing word, man's capacity for wonder. When he describes, the symbolic moment when Europeans came face to face with a brand new continent in their experience. But we must remember that it was already peopled, covered in stories, covered in a tradition. So I can see why people from different dispensations, ethnically and even racially, would say this book is, same old European mishmash. But from my perspective, it's a marvelous piece of literature. It's utterly, and it's not like any good piece of literature. It's scathingly critical of the very thing it seems to exalt. This book is a fierce criticism of the United States, as it's a failed dream. It's a gruesomely failed dream. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg see it all, and they are the eyes of the hollow-eyed, madman's eyes. This is not an impartial witness. This is not a benign witness. This is a witness gone mad. It's almost like when AI was I think it was Twitter did a sort of AI, no, it was Facebook, I think. One of those giant social media companies made an AI bot, like or intelligent bot. It would learn by, it would just, hey, I'm Mr. Bot, let's talk, like something like that, and then people would talk to it, and it would respond and learn as it went. And within like 2 hours, it was a Heil Hitlering, demented sex bot.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I want to kill Jews and fuck. It's like, what the hell? And like people just kept, hey, Nazi. People just kept teaching it how to be anti-Semitic and sexist, and it soon was. Like that's what God looks like in America. This manic advertisement, right? These eyes. It's a really big criticism of the United States of America, and that's why I think it's a fine piece of literature. Not only is it written beautifully, but its subject matter is poignant and scathing, I think. How about you? What do you think?
It's weird that they gave this to soldiers. Like, you would read this and be like, I want to fight for this.
I want to fight for T.J. Eckelberg in the Corona ash dumps. Yeah,
it's great,
Mr. Wilson. Yeah,
there's something really fantastic about this book that it transcends. Like, it's not like Catcher in the Rye, which is almost unreadable nowadays. Possibly, I haven't read it in a long time, but I can't think of it being relevant at all. This is different. This seems like you could, almost like a play, like you could stage it in different times in American history. You could put it in contemporary. You can contemporize it. You can do it. It still seems very relevant and very not moored in the 1920s.
Sure.
It's very much, and of course, I do think it's both. It's a rattling good time and it's literature. I think that's kind of the appeal of it. If it was just literature, I don't think we wouldn't be reading it anymore. Now, I thought this was fun. Let's do it again. So if you have suggestions for books you'd like us to review, send them to me at boozingthroughlit@gmail.com, or Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just like our friend Sharthak Sharma did for this one. So thank you, and again, I'm sorry.
Idea, thank you very much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Hopefully we gave you what you were looking for.
And if not, you can ream us out on the comments below. Next week we'll be reading, I got my note right here, You Are My Dear Friend by Madhuri Vijay in The New Yorker. Until next time, keep scribbling as you born back against the history of time or something. Until then. Keep scribbling.